He was called the fastest shinobi alive during his time, the man who created most of the forbidden jutsu in history that we know, the genius who struck fear into the hearts of some of the Uchiha clan. Tobirama Senju, the second Hokage at the Hidden Leaf Village, may be one of the most underappreciated powerhouses that exists in the entire Naruto universe. But what was it that made him so feared? Why do even legends like Madara or Danzo acknowledge his dominance? In today's newest Naruto Explained video and the newest installment of the Strongest in Naruto series, we're going to be breaking down everything about Tobirama, from his insane feats, his terrifying jutsu, and his controversial legacy that changed the shinobi world forever. We'll be doing all this by looking at every version of Tobirama. So from his time as a child, where he was underrated by fans, to a grown adult in his prime, where he's very underrated by fans, to his displays of power as an Edo Tensei, which only served to further upscale him in terms of what you can consider his prime power level. While Tobirama is the one Hokage that many people like to put on fraud watch, hopefully by the end of this video, you'll find yourself with a difference of opinion about our favorite poster child for Uchiha clan hatred, Tobirama Senju, the man who said he's gonna make Konoha great again. So we're gonna start off with Kid Tobirama. Tobirama was born in an era of endless bloodshed. As a child of the Senju clan, he was forged in the crucible of war. From a young age, Tobirama was already showing signs of brilliance. Not only was he a prodigy sensor, capable of identifying enemy chakra signatures from a great distance, he was also trained in swordsmanship, shuriken jutsu, and elemental jutsu. Even as a child, he fought in brutal conflicts against the Uchiha clan. One of the earliest signs of his growing power was how he was able to keep pace with Madara's brother Izuna, someone who we're told in Naruto Volume 43 for a time was considered to be an equal in strength to Madara, with the manga saying, quote, the two of them, they were equals in every possible way and were constantly competing to become the strongest. This remained the case until Madara clearly pulled ahead of his brother and by extension pulled ahead of Tobirama. As a child, he was weaker than his brother Hashirama, but that's not a bad thing since Hashirama was already stronger than most adult Senju clan members and most Uchiha clan members in the Warring States era, despite the fact that Hashirama hadn't yet awakened wood release. However, as we see in Volume 64, Tobirama was already an elite tracker and sensory ninja because he was able to spy on Hashirama and Madara without getting caught. Given he survived the Warring States era as a child, battling against those grown Uchiha, most of whom probably had a Sharingan, it's safe to say that Tobirama as a small child was not as strong as his brother, but he was easily above Chunin levels of power and potentially in that Jonin bracket despite him being so young. The rivalry between clans, it will later erupt into one of the most legendary confrontations in shinobi history and the battle that would serve as a precursor to Konoha being founded. As a child, Tobirama also showed his analytical nature. While Hashirama was busy dreaming about peace, Tobirama understood that peace, it could only be achieved through systems, laws, and hierarchy and structure. It was the mindset that would one day lead to the formation of the academy, the Chunin exams, the Hidden Leaf Village Police Force, the Anbu Black Ops. As a young child, he was very pragmatic, both in how he approached life as well as the battlefield. But more than that, it showed that from a childhood, he was very calculating. It's a stark contrast to his idealistic brother, and it's something that is reflected in how you have to gauge his strength. Now, this brings us to Prime Tobirama. So Prime Tobirama was a force of nature, for being honest here. After Hashirama's death, Tobirama took on the mantle of Second Hokage. According to the fan books as well as statements we have in universe, each Hokage for their generation was considered to be the strongest of the 5 Kage, and Tobirama, he was no exception. Let's talk about feats though, that's probably what you're here for. First off, Tobirama is the man who killed Izuna Uchiha, defeating him in battle despite Izuna's combat prowess being on par with his own, and Izuna having the Mangekyo Sharingan, which gives you advanced ocular perception. He also survived a fight against the Gold and Silver Brothers, two rogue shinobi enhanced with Nine Tails chakra and armed with the sacred treasures of the Sage's Six Paths. So those Six Paths weapon tools that you saw, that alone is an insane survival feat, especially considering that he was off guard before that battle happened. Danzo, one of Tobirama's direct subordinates, once said that Tobirama's prowess was unmatched during his time. And when you look at the techniques he developed, it's easy to see why. The Flying Thunder God, it allowed him to teleport instantly across the battlefield. He could mark multiple locations and targets, move with perfect timing, and assassinate enemies before they could even perceive his presence. His skill at using Flying Raijin was only surpassed by Minato several decades later. Tobirama was also the inventor of the Shadow Clone Jutsu, a technique that allowed him to divide his attention, strategize more efficiently, and perform multi-layered ambushes. This goes back to his pragmatic personality, which is why you have to factor that into any discussion about how strong he is. And of course, he has his most infamous invention, the Edo Tensei, a forbidden jutsu that allows the user to revive the dead with immortal regenerating bodies. And Tobirama would use this in one of the most cruel ways. Most likely, given his views on the Uchiha clan, he probably reanimated a lot of Uchiha for psychological trauma against the very Uchiha who he was fighting, since they would be seeing a loved one brought back to life. And Tobirama will be using things like the mutually multiplying explosive tags, where you see that tactical mind on display, because that jutsu would create an infinite loop of explosions, essentially wiping out entire squads while doing so. Even if the Edo Tensei body was destroyed, the explosions would continue, and we know for a time that he did use this when Madara was still alive, because Madara knew what the Edo Tensei was and how to reverse it. His speed was also self-explanatory, legendary. He was hailed as the fastest shinobi of his time, capable of tagging enemies with Flying Thunder God seals and explosive tags before they could even react. Even underwater, as shown in the anime, Tobirama was just moving at blazing, blinding fast speeds. In terms of chakra, he had massive chakra reserves, to the point it's underrated. Enough to teleport two Tail Beast mode users simultaneously. His control was refined enough with chakra to use extremely complex jutsu with only one hand seal, which, as a reminder, we are told in Naruto's manga, being able to form hand seals with only one hand and perform jutsu is the mark of a high caliber shinobi. He could also release enough raw chakra to physically affect the environment around him. Tobirama also mastered all 5 changes in chakra nature, as well as both yin and yang release. His water release was especially devastating, capable of generating large amounts of water with no pre-existing external source, which that in of itself requires even more chakra. And he was able to shape them into walls and dragons and razor-sharp projectiles. In the anime, he could flood an entire battlefield and drown out his opponents theoretically. And the fact that he's got jutsu like he's able to spit out those water release needles right from his mouth, that's as gangsta as what you would see in the 90s in New York, where people would have the razor blades under the tongue. If you know, you know. This is even more impressive when you consider the following information. Tobirama is one of the few shinobi in the history of Naruto who have mastered 5 chakra natures through natural methods. So not cheat codes like getting the Rinnegan or getting 6-pass power via the 9 Biju and you automatically attain all the chakra natures. This is important to take note of, because some changes in chakra nature like wind release, they take 6 months just to accomplish the basic first step, which is for wind release. That's a simple cutting of a leaf using wind release chakra. That takes 6 months. Even learning lightning release, it's something that takes time, since we're told that Kakashi, despite Sasuke having an affinity for it, Kakashi says that Sasuke struggled with learning it during the time that Kakashi trained Sasuke before the final round of the Chunin exams. As a shinobi, he could wield the Flying Thunder God sword, a blade that he could theoretically use lightning release with. With his taijutsu, he was able to compete with Hiruzen Sarutobi at the age of 69. Even at that old age, Hiruzen was still regarded as a master, knowing every type of shinobi skill and being a taijutsu master. He also has intellect that is his deadliest weapon. He could analyze foreign jutsu in real time, breaking them down with the weaknesses and formulating countermeasures almost instantly. This is even more impressive when you realize that he's doing this just off of sheer logic, and he's not necessarily doing it with the benefit that the Uchiha clan have, because the Uchiha have the Eye of Insight, and that allows them to do the very thing that Tobirama had to do using his own head. He doesn't have a cheat code that allows him to break down the jutsu. He has to perceive it himself and break it down using his own knowledge. Even without formal training, he could identify various sources of chakra, advance elemental affinities, and even tell the clan signature based on what we see as an Edo Tensei, meaning that in his prime, Tobirama was an absolute monster with sensory skill. Also, as a 24-year-old in the Warring States era, he was considered to be an equal to Izuna in power, where the 4th databook says that they clashed many times on the battlefield and that they were equal in ability. Despite Izuna having Mangekyo Sharingan at his disposal, Tobirama during this time was powerful enough that he stalemated him, but his creation of the Flying Raijin allowed him to get the upper hand and kill Izuna. Later on, when Madara would gain the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, Tobirama proved that even though he was strong, he was a whole tier behind someone like Madara. Once he saw that massive Susanoo and realized he stood no chance, the dude sweated bullets, but that is an anime-only scene that depicted that battle, where Hashirama would eventually step in and defeat Madara. That never happened in the manga, at least the Tobirama portion. Now, Tobirama also, during this time period, would go on to create hundreds of jutsu, and several others that would be considered to be troublesome enough for various reasons that Hashirama, as the first Hokage, had them placed into the scroll of forbidden jutsu during the time Hashirama was Hokage, which is a reminder, even though Tobirama was the one who invented things like the multi-shadow clone jutsu, it was Hashirama who classified it as being a forbidden jutsu. By the time that Tobirama was Hokage, he was the strongest of the second generation 5 Kage, being powerful enough that he survived that ambush against the Gold and Silver brothers, and later on his death, he was able to fight 20 highly skilled shinobi from the Kinkaku force to buy time for Hiruzen to lead the team to safety, though that battle happened on screen. And it should be worth noting, highly skilled shinobi is something that oftentimes is, depending on the translation used from the Japanese manga, oftentimes it's referred to as being S rank. They're interchangeable. So make of what you want in terms of highly skilled. Japanese, English, very subjective, but given the context, I think there's wiggle room to argue that. Now, this brings us to Edo Tensei Tobirama. So, decades after his death, Tobirama was brought back to life via his own jutsu, some of the most disrespectful stuff ever. The Edo Tensei, and yet even in this state, he was a powerhouse, though his power was slightly suppressed due to him being resurrected by Orochimaru, who brought him back at near full power during the 4th Ninja War. And even when he was brought back to life during the Konoha Crush arc, he was still able to compete against high-level threats. Starting with the war arc Tobirama, he was first able to react to Madara's chakra, being able to sense it clearly all the way in the Hidden Leaf Village, despite Madara being several countries away, fighting during the 4th Ninja War, which is very impressive. Again, several countries away, and he was able to discern the clan that someone belonged to because he deduced right away that Karin was a member of the Uzumaki clan. When Sasuke was fatally wounded, Tobirama offered to use Forbidden Jutsu to save him, a feat that shows a continued proficiency in forbidden techniques even in the face of death, and he literally verbally assisted Kabuto when Kabuto was attempting to save Sasuke's life after Sasuke got stabbed by Madara. And it should also be worth noting that during the time where you had the various Ten Tails attacks, he was one of the ones who picked up on what the jutsu were, as well as the fact that when Obito became a Ten Tails Jinchuriki, he and Hiruzen were the ones who went, yeah, those truth-seeking orbs, they work like this. Despite being immobilized by Madara at some point, Tobirama played a pivotal role in several key moments in the war. He provided strategic support. He supported allies by teleporting them across the battlefields. He laid down battlefield control with his Flying Thunder God markers. We also saw that he had extreme skill in barrier jutsu, being able to assist in a high-level barrier jutsu that was able to restrain the rampaging Ten Tails. He also demonstrated his own personal genjutsu if you go by what you see in the Naruto anime. That ability to trap people in total darkness, which even the third Hokage cannot break free of during the Konoha Crush arc, which is a reminder in the manga, it's actually Hashirama who uses that jutsu, but most of you guys are anime only, so you wouldn't know this. And while his control over Edo Tensei was never fully refined, given that Kabuto and Orochimaru did surpass him, the potential was clear. He had basically created a game changer of a jutsu, a terrifying jutsu, which speaks skill on an enormous level on his part. Despite him not being at full power, the first time he was brought back to life, he pressured a 69-year-old third Hokage, who at that time was still considered to be the strongest of the 5 Kage in Naruto Part 1. And when you look at who the 5 Kage were in Naruto Part 1, 4th Raikage, Rasa from the Sand Village, Yagura, the Jinchuriki, Onoiki. That is a very impressive showing. His water release that he used at one point in the story during the Konoha Crush arc, it shocked those nearby in the area due to the sheer volume that he produced without any pre-existing water nearby. Also, the second time he was brought back to life, closer at full power, he was strong enough that when he released his chakra upon Sasuke and Orochimaru being identified as potential threats, he spooked Sasuke at that point, despite Sasuke just having fought against Sage Mode Kabuto and Sasuke having the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan and all the members of Team Taka to back him up. Sasuke was feeling that chakra being released and Sasuke didn't want no smoke. We also see him capable of spamming the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, something that we do know has a high chakra expenditure just to perform the basic jutsu, because Genma and the other 2 members of the Hokage Protection Unit, when they used it, they had to pull the chakra together to perform the jutsu, the basic jutsu. On top of spamming Flying Thunder God, we also see that he was able to use it to the point that he teleported 2 Tail Beast users simultaneously in Naruto chapter 645. That's even more impressive when you realize that Naruto volume 53 shows us that teleporting objects of massive amounts of chakra is directly linked to chakra expenditure used for the Flying Raijin, because when Minato teleported the Nine Tails, it nearly depleted all of his chakra reserves. While it is easy to say, hey, he's an Edo Tensei, so he has infinite chakra, a close read of the Naruto war does reveal that Edo Tensei can run out of chakra. Minato tells us as much when he reveals to Tobirama he didn't have enough chakra to use the Flying Raijin when he was asked, and Edo Tensei do regain chakra much faster than they would in their living body, but it should be worth noting that despite having teleported 2 BG mode users simultaneously, Tobirama was still ready to continue fighting. Another sign that strong body that comes from being a direct descendant of Ashura's bloodline, since the Senju have a strong physical body and high chakra levels as descendants, that's definitely on display here. He even had the impressive moment of teleporting fast enough to intercept a truth-seeking orb and return it mid-detonation and escape before the blast went off, which is incredibly impressive given how fast the truth-seeking orbs move, which means he was even stronger and faster at his prime when alive, since as an Edo Tensei, he was not at full power. Now, in terms of weakness and legacy, despite Tobirama's power, he did have limitations. As the creator of Edo Tensei, it wasn't quite perfected. Orochimaru and Kabuto show us as much, and in his lifetime, he could only control a few bodies at once. His combat style often relied on high-level tactics and speed rather than overwhelming force. Politically, his mistrust of the Uchiha clan arguably laid the groundwork for a certain future conflict in Konoha where Itachi played hide the kunai with his clansmen. But Tobirama's legacy, it is profound. He modernized the shinobi system. He created fundamental institutions and invented techniques that were still being used generations later, which that speaks volumes to his skill as a shinobi as well as his pragmatism as a leader. More than that, he was a shinobi who lived and died by his beliefs. He was efficient and brutal when needed in combat, but everything he did, it was for the sake of protecting the village. In conclusion, I'll say this: from a child soldier to a war-hardened leader, Tobirama reshaped the shinobi world. He's a genius, a warrior, a tactician, feared not just for his overwhelming brute force, not just for his sheer speed, but also his deadly precision and his intellect. This was the second Hokage. This was one of the strongest shinobi in history. Obviously, if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing and clicking here to check out more videos from the Strongest in Naruto playlist, or click here up the top to check out videos from my Everything One Piece Explained channel, or click here on the right to check out videos from my Anime Explained channel where I talk about non-Naruto and non-One Piece content.